Okay, thank you everybody for attending today. My name's Michael Ball. I'm a local resident just like yourself. I am not a politician, so I'm just a local resident like yourself. The reason I've chosen that song today is because it's very indicative of this issue we have here at Berwick Springs. And firstly, I'll start by saying welcome to the beautiful Berwick Springs Lake. That song, if you ever have a look at the lyrics of that song, it says, "You're the voice, make a noise and make it clear. We're everybody's sons and daughters, and all we ask with this issue as sons and daughters is we all ask for the same thing, and that's respect." I want to mention that your voice is being heard very loud and clear in the highest levels of government. So you can read between the lines what I'm saying here, but this is an issue that affects 6,000 places in Victoria. We are the precedent, and this is going to the highest levels of the Australian government because of what's happening here in Victoria. So that song, "You're the Voice," I just want you to keep emailing, phoning, doing whatever you're doing, because your voice is being heard loud and clear, and it is very important we keep this momentum. Today's guests we have with us, there's a couple of the Casey councillors. Good luck, it's the first thing I'll say, but we've got Michelle Crowther, who is, and I'm getting used to these ward names, sorry Michelle. So, Cranbourne Gardens. We have, is it Lynette Piera from the River Gum Ward, and Shane Taylor, who's our ward councillor. So if you haven't met Shane, he's a lovely fella. Get around him and support him. He is here to support us, okay? He's 100% behind us on this issue. And these guys have been given a baptism of fire into council, and there's many issues like the Helen Transfer Station, which is on tonight at 7 o'clock. There's many issues, Hampton Park, sorry. There's the issue with the permits for the vehicles, and of course there's this issue as well. So these guys have been thrown in. Good luck, and thank you for your support today. We really appreciate you coming down today. Also want to thank, and you might not know, but we have formed what's called now the Berwick Springs Residents Association, and you'll see a few of us wearing the t-shirts today. If you are concerned about this issue and you can help in any way, you're certainly welcome to come and make contact and join us. I want to thank those that are on the association and those that are also at the tables over here who are, like yourself, just local residents. They're not happy about what's happening here and they want to help. So if you can help in any way, it's certainly appreciated. There are a few of you here today that might be asking what this is all about, because even this morning when I was down here, there's people saying, "What's this all about? I've got no idea." So let me just start by saying what this issue is all about. Today is about us saying enough is enough. Today is the day we take back the name Berwick Springs Lake. Today is the day. Today we remember the 5 state government members of Parliament who turned up on the 9th of November and placed this sign down at the lake. They changed the name to Guru Nanak Lake, and the community, you guys, not only were you not consulted, but they did not even invite us to the renaming ceremony. Ooh. So today is about you, and today is about the community. It's about the respect for you as an individual to be consulted, and it's about the respect for the 170 years of history that the name the Springs has in this area. I do want to mention that today is not about the seat community. And this is really difficult for me to try and explain this. Yes, the Sikh community is what the late Guru Nanak is named after, but it's not about the Sikh community. Unfortunately, when I talk about this today, it's going to seem like I'm targeting the Sikh community. I'm not. It wouldn't matter if they called it, and I said this at the last gathering, it wouldn't matter if they called it as a Catholic the little baby Jesus lake. It's about the process. It's about the process and the fact that no one was consulted. So please, if you read me wrong today, it is not about the Sikh community. Please understand that. There are a few today that were invited that didn't turn up. So Sonia Kilkenny, the Minister of Planning, Ingrid Stick, Minister for the Multicultural Affairs, and your local member Gary Mass are not here today. I didn't expect the first two to be here because when they came on the 9th of November, the name's changed since then, so they would have had to put it back into their Google Maps. But as for Gary Mass, I have spoken to him. I'll just leave it at that. I have spoken to him. And I urged him to come today and stand here in front of you and explain his actions to you. What disappoints me is what happened after the naming. And I'll go back into that a little bit later. But I did urge him to come today, and for his own reasons, he refused that invitation. I want the media here, and I know there's a couple of you here today, I want the media to understand that if there is anyone here today with any ill intent, then they weren't invited. Last time we had the scenario that a couple of fellows turned up uninvited, and the media and Gary Mass played games with it. And that's not okay as far as I'm concerned. So for the media here today, if there is anyone here with any ill intent, I'd ask you to leave. We are a multi-faith, multicultural community. We're proud of our community. It's a great little community. And I've spoken to Gary Mass when I asked him to come, and I've said to him, Gary, I don't want to hear on Monday morning about any cheap shots, about any cheap political statements, about a couple of fellows that might turn up uninvited. And I certainly don't want to hear the same from Jacinta Allen, our Premier. I think we deserve better than that. So today is not about whether it's the Liberal Party or the Labor Party. What I'm telling you today, and I said this at the last gathering, I might say that a couple of times today, forgive me, this is about how this has happened. If this was a Liberal government, don't worry, I'd be calling out this exactly the same. Trust me. I want the name of the lake back, and I'm not going to rest until that happens. It's not about who, it's not about the Liberal Labor Party, it's not politics, it's just the facts of the matter that the Labor Party is the one that has done this. As far as I'm concerned, this is what I'm calling a travesty of justice. And for those who don't know what a travesty of justice means, it means that it refers to a legal process or an outcome that is so unfair, so distorted, or so ridiculous that it's a mockery of justice itself. And that's where we see ourselves today. This issue, I think, is a travesty of justice. It's a mockery of the legal process. I think following that, the government really should hang their heads in shame, to be honest. Yep. And I will add that political agendas, and I'll refer to this political agenda because that's how this whole thing started in 2018. This was a political agenda, and political agendas can be dangerous, especially when it comes into a local community like this. A message for the politicians, and I'd love the media to take this back to them. I really would. If you're listening and you're from somewhere reporting on this today, I want you to take this message back to them. For the politicians that have reached out to me, I thank you for your support on behalf of this community. However, Do not play me or this community for a fool. If you've given me an assurance that you're going to work on this issue, don't play me for a fool and follow through with the commitments you've given me. If you don't, then I'm going to call you out and I'm going to shame you. So a very important part of this issue is the history. And when I come down to the lake, and I know I've spoken to a lot of you about it, and I talk a lot about the 170 years and what the 170 years means. So I'm just going to give you a really quick history lesson. You'll find it interesting. So where did the name Berwick come from? I don't know how many of us know that. Robert Gardner is credited as the first European settler in 1838. His run was called Berwick, named after the town Berwick in England where he came from. So that's where the name Berwick comes from. The township of Berwick was surveyed in 1852. The 1993 Berwick Heritage Study on page 17 talks about William Clark and Edwin Greaves. So William Clark in 1855 settled over there on Homestead Road, massive property, all this land. 30 years later he built the cheese factory, so that's the homestead over there on Homestead Road. Edwin Greaves come out in 1849 on a ship from Scotland called the Louise Bale Avenue. If you search Louise Bale Avenue, it's the only Louise Bale I can find. So the ship that Edwin Greaves Road came out on was called the Louise Bale. So if you live on Louise Bale, that's how you get your name. So in 1903, he was managing the property for William Clark, late 1800s. In 1903, Edwin Greaves, when they subdivided some of the land, he built Stockyard Drive on the top of the hill up there in 1903. And he called his home the Springs. And William Clark Homestead was also called the Springs, after the natural springs we see in this area today. So this name, the Springs, and Berwick Springs, goes back at least 170 years. And that's the significance of this heritage and this time walk we've put down here for you to have a look at today. That's the significance of the name. Now, Edwin Greaves, I didn't know, was described as possessing a strong community spirit, a characteristic that was very apparent in his family. It saddens me that our government has so little respect for our forefathers who toiled this land. And for myself personally, I'm proud to take up the fight to protect that heritage. Yesterday, I went up to the springs on the hill and I spoke to a gentleman by the name of Jack, who now owns that property. And a lot of you don't know, my family comes from northern Victoria, and grandfather had a homestead. And when I stood on that veranda and I looked at the name, the Springs, next to the door, while I was waiting for Jack to answer because the doorbell wasn't working. Sorry, Jack. Yeah. But I was knocking away and I looked off the veranda and I thought, wow, this is just amazing. And it was then that the penny really dropped, and it was then that I realised why I'm doing this and why the Berwick Springs community is doing this. It really is about the heritage. And I stood on that veranda and I thought, we've got to fight for our heritage. We've got to fight for this name. Jack then told me a couple of more things about our history. So apparently, if you live on Lilius Crescent, the last owner of that property up on the springs up there at Stockyard Drive was a fellow by the name of Jeff, and he married a lady by the name of Lilius Greaves. So that's where Lilius Crescent come from. And then he was telling me the Melbourne Hunt Club used to run a lot of fox hunting trips from here, from his property up there on the hill, back in the 1900s. And the Hunt Club, obviously, they get on their horses and ride down the track, down the hill, and out to Winter Farm. That's where Hunt Club Road gets its name from. So if you live on Hunt Club Road, that's where your name comes from there. And the funny thing is, when I'm at Eden Rise and I'm driving down Greaves Road, Greaves Road, I often say to my kids, you see those big gum trees on the hill up there? That's the Springs. That's the original homestead of the Springs. So if you're ever driving from Eden Rise and you look over the hill, you're not sure where it is, where Stockyard Drive is, it's just on the top of that hill up there and you'll see the gum trees in the distance. So moving along a little bit to 1997. Just on that rotunda over there, if you have a look, either today or next time you're around the park, there's a little plaque just on the bluestone wall facing the road. That plaque was put there by the Honourable Robert McClellan. He was the Minister of Planning, which is quite ironic, but he was the Minister of Planning, and he unveiled that plaque in 1997 when the estate was first established. I wonder today, and maybe, I don't know if we can reach out to him, but I wonder today what he would think of another planning minister who then came back 27 years later and changed the name without consulting the community. To be honest, I don't even think Sonia Kilkenny, as our current planning minister, even knew that that plaque is over there today. So that's the history lessons. Now we get into how this happened. So I'm going to read to you just a couple of lines from the naming legislation. So this is the rules of the naming legislation. And Principle I talks about using commemorative names. So naming a place or a feature or a location after a person. In relation to Principle I, using commemorative names. If it's named after a person, that person should have been or been held in strong regard by the community. So when they called this guru a knack, I had to Google it. Now, I don't want to be offensive to the Sikh community, it's not about that. But how can someone be held in strong regard when I didn't even know, or you didn't even know who he was? The preference, and it says it here in the legislation, the preference is given to pre-existing names in the community. So all that history I was talking about for 170 years, it was the Springs. The Springs, yeah, that's the Springs. So the preference is given to pre-existing names in the community. And they've named it after someone who was meant to be held in strong regard by the community. When deciding on the assignment of that name, it takes into account the relevant history and association to the area. It takes in the significance of the person and the person to the area. For example, and I give an example here, a person who has been associated with the area for at least 25 years. Now, the Guru Nat was born in 1469. I'm sorry, it doesn't make any sense to me.
Born in Australia?
The Labor government will argue when I raise this issue with them that the Sikh community represents a large population, and you would have got it in some of the emails you've sent. No disrespect, but the 2021 census, the last census done, the Sikh community represents 1.9% of the population in Narre Warren South. 1.9%. As a Catholic, if that was me, I would consider myself a minority. And the question is, why wasn't the other 98% of you consulted? As far as the fact that the place doesn't have a name, I get my head twisted around this, to be honest. But let's be clear. If the Springs is Berwick Springs, and that's the waterways, and the water is the lake, well, isn't that the same? We're talking about the same thing. We're in the Berwick Springs Park, on the Berwick Springs Promenade, just down from the Berwick Springs Hotel, and if you drive that way, you get to the Berwick Springs Footy Club, Cricket Club, Netball Club. We're in Berwick Springs.
Yes. Yes.
Now, this this is really important because I mentioned this very point. I explained it slightly differently. I said something to the effect of, you can't separate the lake from the road. And if you stand on the road, you've got the waters of Guru and that going underneath you, or the waters of the little baby Jesus, whatever they want to call it. But at the last gathering, I said it wouldn't be long before we lost our identity. Because the argument is, this is just the lake. You ring Gary Mass's office and a lovely young lady will say, it's just a lake, don't worry about it. Well, here's an example for you. Turbans Australia ran an Australia Day barbecue here on the 26th of January, and we thank them for that. Again, it's not about them. However, on the 30th of January, on page 5 of the Berwick News, and I know they're here today, it was reported incorrectly that the barbecue was held at the Guru Nanak Lake wetlands. So this is the point I was making. It's not long before you lose your identity in something like this. And already we're now the Guru Nanak wetlands, which encompasses everything, not just this lake. So since the last gathering, I can't tell you we got our name back, but I will tell you our voices are being heard. Trust me on that. Trust me on that. Since that time, we submitted an objection to the Department of Premier Cabinet, because that's where the registry office says it was stamped, from the Department of Premier Cabinet. That objection to the Department of Premier and Cabinet was rejected, and we sent that objection on the grounds that there was obviously no consultation and it didn't apply to those principal guidelines I read out about the association to the area. When we sent that objection in, guess where it was sent to? The Minister of Planning, Sonia Kilkenny, who was here on that day. So of course we knew that wasn't going to go anywhere, but we did it anyway, and of course it was rejected. So then we put in an appeal to the Ombudsman, and we said to the Ombudsman, we want you to investigate why it's gone to Sonia Kilkenny, the Minister of Planning, and why she's rejected our appeal. I, to be honest, don't even think they read it, because we got a very quick one-page reply back saying that the Ombudsman can't investigate anything because it was done by the Minister under ministerial direction. So in the timeline today that you have, and I hope you've all got a copy of the timeline, and if you haven't, grab a copy of the timeline off someone. You will see that this process started back in about July or August 2022. I won't go through the whole timeline, you can read it for yourself. Again, no disrespect, but 19 senior community Sikh leaders were consulted in July and August 2022. Just think about that, 2022. How many Melbourne Water bills have you had since then? In that time, July and August 2022, the location was decided upon, the name was decided upon, and even the future monument that's coming was decided upon.
Can I ask what sort of monument that is?
We have no idea, and that's a question I'm going to raise in a minute. So this process actually started back in 2021. So this process started back in 2021, okay? So government turned slowly. What they forgot to do was consult you in that 3-year period. But here's what I call the stinger in the tail, and this is where the Casey councillors might find this interesting. For 1.5 years, from the middle of 2022, they had numerous stakeholder meetings. The stakeholder meetings were between Geographic Names Victoria, or GNV, which you'll see on the timeline, Melbourne Water, who's obviously the owner, Casey Council, and the DFFH, the Department of Families, Fairness and Housing. So they were the stakeholders, the four of them, all in there. In December 2023, 1.5 years later under administration, Casey Council, 2 days after the 9th, put out a communication that they weren't involved in the process. But between July and August 2022 and December 23, they were in these stakeholder meetings leading the community consultation and naming process. Now, we've got some freedom of information requests out at the moment, and we've had the one come back from Casey. And from what we can work out, all the communication from Casey's been blacked out and redacted, but it's not going to take too long once we get Melbourne Waters and Geographic Names Victoria and the Department of Family Fairness and Housing. We're going to see very visibly what the Casey Council was saying. But something happened in late 2023. It's a twist, and we don't know what's happened. But like a great Agatha Christie book, we will work out the mystery as to why in December 2023, Council decided they didn't want to lead this process anymore.
Maybe they were in Egypt.
So I'm going to read out what happened on the 11th of December 23, a couple of lines. So just try and listen carefully. The City of Casey has considered the requirements and the implications of leading the community consultation process. So I asked a question at Council the other night, what do they mean by the implications? Were they afraid to lead the consultation? After 1.5 years they decided, oh, something's going to happen here. And then they said they weren't in a position to lead this process. They say Melbourne Water, as the registered owner of the site, is a naming authority and is therefore responsible to lead the consultation process. It took them 1.5 years to work that out. However, and this is really interesting, they then say Council can also support this process by promoting any engagement through our communication channels and directing any queries accordingly. And that line's important. Because what they're saying is, okay, for 1.5 years we were doing this or we weren't doing this, don't know. December 23, we don't want to do it anymore, but we will still help with this process, and that's important when I come to something in a minute. Geographic Names at the time, Geographic Names Victoria, GNV, on your timeline, they agreed to the principle, and they also confirmed that community consultation would be required. So up until this stage, if I can make it clear, Council and Geographic Names Victoria, which is the Department of Transport, are saying there has to be wider community consultation. So just remember that thought. So the question is left with us, why did they back out? I'm just going to throw something out there. Given that Daniel Andrews made this commitment in 2018, and given that the only way this was going to happen, it's been dragging on for a couple of years, 2022, 2023, in Council's defence, were they forced by the state government? Was there pressure put on them to back out of this? Because it wasn't long after this time in early 2024 that Ingrid Stitt, Minister of Multicultural Affairs, who is here, then wrote to Sonia Kilkenny, said, I need ministerial direction to get this through. So I don't know, I might be wrong, but to me it just seems strange when Council says, we're going to do this, we're going to consult, yep, all good. And then all of a sudden, just before Christmas in 23, they say no. A few months later, Ingrid Stitt says, we're going to push this through using ministerial direction. So that's the question, and we'll try and work that out. Was Council forced under the administration out of that process? So on Friday, Malcolm Sharp, who's standing over here, and I met with Ingrid Stitt, the Minister, and I asked her that question. I said to Ingrid, I said, well, why did you go against your own department's advice? The Department of Transport and Planning, GNV, is saying you've got to consult the wider community. Why did you go against your own advice? Why did you seek that ministerial approval from Sonia Kilkenny? Do you understand the vision? Do you understand the community says it's wrong? Her reply? She just follows the advice that she's given. Sorry for that. It's such a good song we want to hear it again. I'm just going to hand over to Shane for a moment. He's going to say a few words for us, and then I'm going to tell us what we're going to do from here. Is that on? Yep. First of all, I want to thank Michael.
Put it closer to your mouth.
Sorry? Yeah. Okay, right up. All right, I want to thank Michael and Malcolm and the team. I think these guys have done an amazing job. Sorry, it's me. How is everyone? Also, I want to thank the councillors that are here today, for their attendance and their support. I think it's very important that the new councillors are aware of what's going on. It's great to see so many people here. Like it's, I don't know what the numbers are, but there's got to be over 300 plus people here. It's fantastic. So it shows how big this issue really is for people, all right, and how important it is. So, for those of you who don't know, I'm Shane Taylor. I'm the councillor for Cowan Ward, and we're here to obviously talk about the lack of communication and consultation that as residents we've been faced with. Okay. This lake, our Berwick Springs Lake, now Guru Nanak Lake, was renamed and gazetted without a single word from the state government. So no one even knew about it. No consultation, no heads up, just a big announcement last November, right before the newly elected councillors were to be sworn in. So we hadn't even been sworn in, and the lake had already been renamed. So it's not the naming, it's not the Sikh community that we're against. It's actually the process. It's the lack of respect. It's the lack of consideration for our community and for the people who actually live here. So, like many of you, me and my family, we moved into this area, and we moved here because of the close proximity to the lake. So we wanted to be by the lake. We walked the trails. We raised our family here, but we weren't part of the process either. So I'm a resident first, councillor second. I wasn't consulted. Now, there's talk of signage or a monument, and they are keeping us in the dark. We have no idea what this is going to look like. Sorry. All right. So Victoria's own naming rules say they should have consulted the immediate community, and they didn't. Now there appears to be some finger pointing going on, and we're looking to get to the bottom of that.
Put the mic near your mouth.
Sorry. Like I said, look, I'm a resident, not a politician. All right. So what has happened here and how it's happened is completely wrong. All right, and I'm sure we all agree with that.
And I want you to know that you've got my full support. I fully support the Berwick Springs community and the Residents Association. And I've had discussions with the Mayor, and we are going to sit down with the residents group and actually have community consultation and go through that. We'll work out what the course of action is, and then we'll take it from there from what the council can do. It's great to see that the MPs are actually starting to voice their concerns and raise it in Parliament. But we need to, as residents, we need to get behind them and encourage them. I want to shout out to Brad Batten and obviously Anne-Marie. I think it's great that they're speaking up, but we need to get behind them and make their voices heard. Amplify it. As residents, encourage the ones that are speaking out, because this is how we're going to get it. All right? Especially with elections approaching, we need to make sure that they know that they're on the line. I strongly encourage you to write to the Planning Minister, Sonia Kilkenny, Multicultural Minister, Ingrid Stitt, and the other MPs. Tell them what this lake means to you and what it's like to be sidelined. Spread the word, sign the petition, stay loud and stay engaged. With over 300, 400 people here today, our voice is being heard. All right, like Michael said, it's getting heard in the highest places. Don't let anyone tell you that people power doesn't work, because it absolutely does. All right, thank you. Thank you, Shane.
Okay, so there is one notable absentee here today, and that is Anne-Marie Hermans. So I'm just going to get Monique to read a statement why Anne-Marie Hermans, who is our Liberal member for the South East Metro region, why she isn't here today.
Dear Berwick Springs residents, I sincerely apologise to the local community for being unable to attend today's forum. As a local resident and the sponsor of your petition, I was eager to meet with you all and hear your concerns firsthand. However, I have been advised that due to security concerns and the lack of available police resources, I am regrettably unable to be here in person. Please feel free to share your thoughts with me via email. It is deeply concerning that the government continues to disregard and dismiss the voices of the local community. Kindly, Anne-Marie Hermans, the Liberal Legislative Council Member, State Member for South Eastern Metropolitan Region, and the Shadow Assistant Minister for Education.
So it is important to understand Anne-Marie is 100% behind us. But there are genuine security concerns after what happened at the last gathering. So you may not be aware, but Brad Batten had to leave very quickly with the police escort. And the issue today is that there was not enough police resources. So there's another issue for you, but there weren't enough police resources to be here today. And I think it's really sad, and I ask myself, how did we get to this situation that a local member can't come to a local park on a Sunday afternoon and represent her local community because of the advice that there is security concerns? To me, that's really sad. And she is 100% behind us. And today we will be launching a new petition. This is a new petition. It is going directly into the upper house, the Legislative Council of Victoria. And that petition, we need 2,000 signatures. I'm asking everyone to take a sheet and get 4 signatures and bring it back. That petition will give us a 30-minute debate, okay? And that debate is going to give us some answers and some accountability as to why that process I was talking about wasn't followed. So please, I need you to take that sheet, get at least 4 signatures on that sheet, and every Sunday afternoon I will be here at 5 o'clock for the next 5 or 6 weeks, and you can bring that sheet back to me. But I need every single person here today So for the people that are on the tables that have the petition, Lorraine, Fred, Ash, you got the petitions. Can you please walk around the crowd and make sure everyone has a petition? I need everyone to get 4 signatures. This is really important. I need your support. As a community, you've come today to support us. Please go and get the 4 signatures.
Do they have to be residents? Or any...
No, they don't have to be a resident and they don't have to be 18, okay? Anyone can sign it. They don't have to be 18. So it has to be, the other thing is it has to be filled in correctly and neatly. So name, address, email, all nice and neatly. It's going into the upper house, okay? It's not a local petition complaining about a bus stop or something. This is going into the upper house of Victoria. All right, so I'm going to get you stirred up a little bit more with some more information. Geographic Names Victoria emailed me a while ago. There are 26 places in this area alone that are not officially named. 26, including the park you're at today. Not officially named. Beaumont Waters is not officially named. Kimberley Downs is not officially named. The other side of Clyde Road behind St Francis is not officially named. 6,000 places in Victoria are going to be renamed, and the Premier was boasting about this the other day. So what's really telling is that on the 20th of April in 2023, the Department of Transport and Planning admitted during this process many of the features have unofficial names and it's a problem that's waiting to happen. In other words, they knew. They knew the problem was waiting to happen. They knew this was going to happen. And just like when you buy a set of steak knives, there's more. And this is what I'm calling the final act of treason. This is what I call the final act of treason. This is the trade-off. And again, I'll read this to you. This is from the Department of Family, Fairness and Housing, Ingrid Stitt's portfolio. And this is what it says. It is important to clarify what the public will be consulted on, given the commitment made by the former Premier, Daniel Andrews, 2018. So it's important to clarify what will be consulted on, commitment made by the former Premier to name the landmark, Guru-Nanak. The Department of Family, Fairness and Housing had proposed to consult the public on the monument. Instead, that's the word, instead of the actual landmark name. So what are they saying here? The Department of Family, Fairness and Housing is saying, don't worry about consulting the community. Daniel Andrews made a commitment in 2018. We're using ministerial direction. Casey Council, we've pushed them into the corner, thrown them under the bus. We'll use the ministerial direction. We'll get this signed off. And as a trade-off, we won't consult the community on the name. We'll just appease the mob by asking them what they think about the monument afterwards. And that's where it is, everybody. That's what I call the lack of respect. It's a lack of respect for you, and it's a lack of respect for the 170 years of history that I talked about. So as Johnny Farnham sings, it's time to use our voice. We will not be silenced. We're everyone's sons and we're everyone's daughters. We deserve to be respected equally. We demand our name and our identity is reinstated today and not tomorrow. And with the support of Anne-Marie's petition, We launched that petition and we need you to get behind it. We need 2,000 signatures on that petition, and that's why I'm asking you to get at least 4 or 5 signatures each. Lastly, for the state of Victoria, and I said this before, there are 6,000 places going to be renamed, and this state government is coming after your home next. This is not a misuse of power. This is an absolute abuse of power. I want to thank the Casey councillors for coming today. I want to thank the Berwick Springs Resident Association. Again, if you can help out, please join. We have a fantastic community here, and it's going to take more than the Premier Jacinta Allen to divide us, which is what she's done under this decision. So today, before you leave, there's this little history walk here which shows you all about the history of the area. We do have some T-shirts which we're taking payments up front for. If you want to make a donation, there's free stickers there for $5, the T-shirts for a donation of $29. If you can help us out, please do. But just remember what I said. This is a travesty of justice. This is a mockery of the legislation, and there's no respect for you. Don't underestimate what they've done here. Okay, they had the campaign, they pushed it through, they couldn't care two hoots, and this is where we are today. Thank you.